Welcome to Tier Talk. This is Alex Alonso with Street TV, and I got two guys on the line from Solano Prison. Of course, we got TC from out the Avalon Gardens, but we also got Kambouie on the line, who's also incarcerated at Solano State Prison with TC. And before we hear from Kambouie, I want to hear from TC about you meeting Kambouie and what's it been like, being on the yard and just meeting people who probably laced you a little bit because he been there longer than you.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
He probably gave you some good game because he been there longer than you. Just let's open up with that, TC.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm a first say that I ain't no stranger to Kambouie. You know what I'm saying? Kambouie is somebody that I always heard about. You know what I'm saying? In all my shoot terms, we just had never crossed paths. But I've always heard about this brother Kambouie, man, as being a good brother, man, a stand-up brother. You know what I'm saying? Just a brother that if you need him, he's there for you, man, to help you. He'll give you the damn shirt off his back. You know what I'm saying? And so, fast forward, moving forward, man, I ended up coming here to Solano, and I finally, bumped into, Kambouie, you know what I mean? And I ain't even say, like, bumped into him. I kind of, like, we gravitated towards each other, you know what I'm saying? And since then, man, we connected, man, and, we have a lot of, fruitful, positive, discussions with each other, you know what I mean? About, bringing about real change on these prison yards and, challenging dudes to change their thought process and change their mentalities and stuff like that. So these are some of the conversations that we have, and since being here in Solano with Cam, we done became good friends, and we done built on a lot of good positive stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's all love with Huck, man. That's Huck, man.
Okay, so before we hear from Kambouie, I just want to hear a little bit more about being in the shoe. Which prison was you in the shoe at, and why weren't you able to meet Kambouie face to face? What were the prison conditions like to where you heard of him but had not actually met him or knew him face to face yet?
Okay, so I went through the corporate shoe, and they had two sides to corporate shoe. They had the 4A side and they had the 4B side. And I think the B side was largely known to be.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It was known to largely be the validated side of the shoe. I mean, I have been through 4B side, a time or two, but I never was really able to land in the same building with Cam, and I ended up going to A side. You know what I'm saying? But we never crossed paths, and the conditions there, man, in corporate shoot, man, is those conditions was meager, man. They call those cells, man, torture chambers and shit. So it's side by side. It's bedrock, concrete slabs. You know what I mean? When it get hot, man, and you can feel that heat. You know what I'm saying? And when it get cold, and you can feel that cold and shit too. You know what I'm saying? So it was really all based on sensory deprivation. You know what I'm saying? And sleep deprivation and stuff like that. Especially when they came with those pipe checks and stuff like that, man. To pretty much wake you up out your sleep, and you know what I mean, and the foods and everything. It's a real fucked up situation, but it's also a humbling situation. It also causes a person to open his eyes up, man, and want to do better for himself and get up out of here, man, and not return to that type of shit.
Okay, now Kambouie, let the people know, how long have you been incarcerated, and we'll just start off with the Corcoran shoe. What's the Corcoran shoe like?
Well, now, I've been incarcerated now, man, going on 38 years. And 27 of those years was spent in SHU. The first 11 was in Pelican Bay SHU. And the last 16 was in Cortland SHU. And what Cisco was saying in regards to
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Why we never ran into each other back there in them stoops, man, was because I was on the validated yard. But the same conditions he suffered over there were where I was, you know, and maybe even a little more. But you, in order to survive something like that, you have to go deep within yourself, man, and you know, to want to survive that. You know, you do a lot of deep introspection, man, and
you have 60 seconds remaining.
It's an honor to meet Cisco now, although I heard about the brother too. You know, listen, good men talk about good men, you know, wherever they are, you know, in crossing. But I had heard about Cisco as well, you know. But out of those 27 years back there, bro, my research within me brought out the best parts of me, you know, and that's what you got here today. The better parts of Kambouie, man, that's going to stand righteous and tall for itself and the people, you know. And that's what me and Bub been doing since we've been here on this Solano camp. Them years in Pelican Bay, the first, I said probably the first 19 months, the squad there was trying to work on me, man. They kept me separated, trying to isolate me away from the people. The goon squad there. So they played tricks with me with my mail, you know, held my mail up and stuff like that. And you would write back to people asking them what the hell going on, you know, cussing and cursing, where y'all at? Why y'all not supporting me? At the same time, they was holding on to my mail, you know, trying to create problems for me, you know. And they kept me isolated for a minute, away from everybody, to try to break my spirit, break me down, you know, and have me lashing out so they can create more problems for me. But those years went by, man, and I started meeting people, you know, conscious brothers. A lot of the brothers y'all probably heard about and know, you know, freedom fighters.
Was you in there with?
Yeah.
Was you in there with Chip Fitzgerald?
Yeah, I actually met Chip, man, in Soledad in '84, I think, something like that. But yeah, Chip was back there with us. Yeah.
And they never let Chip out. He ended up dying in prison.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that's a loss because Chip was one of the first brothers to aid me and you know how when we young, we have these geographical locational hang-ups, man.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Chip was one of the first brothers that came to my aid in Soledad, man, G-Wing. It was a situation that occurred there with a couple of us young brothers. And I was young back then when I first came in. I think I was 19 or something like that, man. And, you know, he gave me the understanding of how it's going to be on these yards and how we going to need each other, man. You know, and to cut the bullshit, the nonsense out, you know. So that started me on that path there, you know, but not separate myself from myself and my people, you know. But back to Pelican Bay, I have to say this. I'm blessed, man, to have Pelican Bay in my life, bro. Because Pelican Bay isolated me away from everything I was doing, you know. and created a mind that started thinking in terms of consciousness, you know, and it gave me my humanity, bro, you know, and made me discover the inside of me that my mother was trying to raise me to be, you know, a good dude, man, you know. So for that part of Pelican Bay, I'm grateful. You know, it also will develop. You can develop psychological issues. You know, mind problems and shit. But those brothers that was amongst me there helped me fight that. You know, they gave me conscious material to read, books to read, history books, literatures, and things like that to help me build the person I am today, man, to strengthen the man that I am today.
Now, TC, when you went into the shoe, and you're a younger cat, and you know there's a bunch of older cats that have been already in there, you know, 5 years, 10 years, or even more. What's that like? Do you try to you know, learn off of them when you're first fresh and new in the shoe and you don't know what to expect?
Yeah, I mean, you know, realistically, man, I would you know, gravitate towards their insight and knowledge to, to figure out, you know what I'm saying, how I'm gonna navigate through my shoe time, how I'm gonna navigate through my life being back there. And you know, the first time I ever went to the shoe, you know, I was deeply caught up in my dysfunction and shit, man. So, you know, I wouldn't cling it to nobody but, you know what I'm saying, but my homies. It's like what Cam was saying about, you know, the geographical, you know what I'm saying, the geographical trip on, they from over there or they from up north, or, you know what I'm saying. I really wasn't tripping off that my first, trip to the shoe. I was just tripping off, the gang culture and, you know what I'm saying, where my homies at, you know what I'm saying, where the Avalon's at. But, you know, as I kept, you know what I'm saying, I kept experiencing through my journey what I was experiencing. I kept, you know, getting caught up in having them extended shoes. You know, I then started to, you know what I'm saying, gravitate towards, you know what I'm saying, brothers that was conscious. You know what I'm saying, brothers that, you know, that had, you know, a whole lot of, you know what I'm saying, that shoe time up under their belt. And that's where the level of consciousness started coming in. You know, starting to, you know, receive, educational books. You know what I'm saying, books about, about my, my ancestral, you know what I'm saying, dealings. Certain history. You know what I mean, all kind of stuff. You know, philosophical books. You know what I'm saying, all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean, and it was then in the deep dark situations of the shoot, man, where dudes was really having real life serious conversations with me, you know what I'm saying, challenging my mind, challenging, you know what I'm saying, my morale, my principles and all of those stuff, you know what I mean? And that's when the shit started clicking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, now Kambouie, you mentioned how many years you've been in prison, and if I do the math right, this goes back to the late 80s. That goes back to the late 80s. I guess at that time, TC was probably about 6, 7 years old. I was a teenager. Can you give the people a little bit of insight into what the case that landed you in prison?
Yeah. I'm in here, man, for the murder on the beautiful brother Huey P Newton, man. You know, the brother that brought us the movement, man. You know? Yeah.
And was Huey P Newton somebody that you had already known, or did you just happen to cross paths with him when you ended up killing him?
No. I met Huey, man, when I was a little kid, man. A little boy, man, down in West Oakland. Huey and my mother and my uncles and all them grew up together. Went to high school together, you know. Our families knew each other. And my father and his brother, you know the Newtons. But I also attended attended the Black History classes that they do. One of the centers that they first opened up was right down the street from my grandmother's house in West Oakland. So, you know, I attended the free breakfast programs. Actually went there and got my first sickle cell anemia test. You know, the Panther was doing a lot for the community back then, man. It was a beautiful thing, you know. But he came to my grandmother's house to pick my uncle up. And my uncle had a truck, and they went and got a bunch of clothes, man, and was passing out clothes and tennis shoes. And that's when I first met Huey. You know, I was about 10 years old when I met Huey.
Okay. Now, by the late 80s, when you caught your case, it was widely known that Huey Newton was pretty much on drugs, and I guess to use a you know, not to be disrespectful to him and his memory, but he was smoked out from what all reports, you know, say. Can you speak?
Yeah.
Can you speak about that Huey and what was going on in the late 1980s?
Yeah. That Huey, as Huey always been, Huey command, you know, what he wants. You know, he command what he wants. But that Huey, man, was addicted to cocaine. You know, late night hours, at dark, was robbing, jacking dope dealers. You know, sometime during the day. You know, in 1989, it just so happens, I was young, 25 years old, man, trying to feed my family, you know, and trying to get back on my feet after coming home from a prison stint in Cortland, actually. Cortland Shoe, when they was there trying to kill us playing in gladiator games, you know. And I had been out a couple of months, you know. I had extended to Huey several times, you know, to get him off the street. Here, man, take this, you know, we'll wop this and other. Like I say, we knew each other. He decided to rob me, you know. He did that a couple of times because of who Bud was. Not out of any fear or anything like that, but out of love and respect for who that brother was, man, and what he did for our people, man. I didn't trip on it, you know. But you can't keep doing things like that when you're supposed to be defending the community, violating the community, you know. And I took the measures that I took, man, you know, and I'm where I am and he where he is.
Now, after that situation, did you get a lot of like stigma and negativity because of who he was at one point in time, or did the system treat him just like a victim like everybody else, or did it become high profile?
Oh, it was very high profile. You know, it was very high profile, man. You know, but everybody knew who Huey was, man. You know, but I say because of Buzz, because of who he was, what he did, you know, people felt the way they felt. You know, people felt the way they felt. You know, it's understandable to a certain extent. You know, but the reality of it is you can't do harm to people without harm coming to you. You know? And it's sad as it is, it happens.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You know, it happens to us a lot, man. You know? We sometimes would rather do harm to ourselves than anybody else, man. You know?
When you got to prison in 1991, how did the prison population look at you? I'm guessing it was mixed. Some people felt like, damn, why'd you do that to such a hero? Or maybe others said, hey, he did what he did, and that's what happens on the
You have
streets.
60 seconds remaining.
I wasn't really confronted with that. You know, I wasn't really confronted with that. There were a couple of times.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
There were a couple of times where I may have had to address an issue, you know, but it never really, because like I say, everybody knew what was going on with brother, you know, and there were a lot of people that were upset about it, true enough, you know, but, you know, there wasn't a lot of flack behind it, man, you know. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
So TC, let me pivot back to you. I want to know what your reaction was when you first met Kambouie, or when you first knew about Kambouie and what he was in prison for. Like, how do you react as an inmate that's incarcerated there?
I didn't really have a reaction, you know what I mean, to bro's situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I've always heard nothing but good things about Kambouie, you know. So, I mean, when I met him, I was just like, damn, we finally meeting up, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying, after hearing about you all these years from being back there, man, and brushing shoulders with all these people that that knew you, and you know what I'm saying, it's like, damn, we finally here, man. We finally, you know, we put the shoe behind us. We finally out here, and it was just like, it felt like a, you know, like a reunion, bro. You know what I'm saying, like you know. I feel like I've been knowing the brother, you know what I'm saying, my whole damn life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it was just like a beautiful feeling, just finally, you know what I'm saying, being able to, you know what I'm saying, to meet up with him. And it's like, it's like, damn, bro, you know what I'm saying, we here, we still got work to do. Let's get to work. You know what I'm saying? Let's get to work on, you know, on doing our part, man, and looking out for these younger cats, man, about, you know, helping, you know, change their perspective and, you know what I'm saying, and reshape their minds and change the culture for the better. You know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, we see each other every day, and it's like, you know what I'm saying, like, we see each other, we just start smiling and shit, man, and you know what I'm saying, and we give each other a hug, and it's like, man, like, what's up, man, how you doing today, man? Like, you smooth, or where you headed to? So it's always like a reunion with me and Kambouie, man. I feel like I've been knowing bro, you know what I'm saying, my whole life, you know what I'm saying, and, you know, it's just a beautiful thing, man, to be here on the yard with him, man, and you know what I'm saying, and see how he do, man, see how he shine, man, on, you know, with a lot of what's going on here, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Kambouie, you mentioned you was 25 years old. What was the courtroom situation like? I'm assuming there was media there. You're 25 years old. Was it like a circus? How was you processing this as a 25-year-old guy?
Oh man, it was somewhat intimidating, frustrating. You know, bro, all I knew back then was how to break the law. You know, I didn't know nothing about fighting it, man. You know, on such a high scale level. You know, that was a very high-profile case. And
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
My thing was, because all that time, man, I was hurting inside. You know, I had just been arrested, man, for killing somebody that I cared about. You know, that I loved. You know, and walking in that courtroom, man, standing up to fight for my life, bruh, you know, while his family, his wife, and the brother David Hilliard is sitting in that courtroom on the opposite side of my family, but on the DA's side of the courtroom, it hurt. You know what I'm saying? And this white racist district attorney taking shots at me, man. You know, man, it was hurting, bro, because my whole thing was to try to let them know this is bullshit. You know, the Black Gorilla family had nothing to do with Huey's death, man. You know, the only point a part of them, the Black Guerrilla family, having to do with Huey's death is what the district attorney did. The shit he said, you know. But that was not the cause for Bud dying. You know, Bud died because he robbed the wrong youngster. You know, that wasn't standing for him taking from him. You know, especially after he was given to him. So sitting in that courtroom, man, while this brother's family is in that courtroom, looking at me in that way, man, that was it was a hurting situation, man. It was horrible, bruh. You know.
Now you just mentioned David Hilliard. For those who don't know, he was another Panther member from your city. He's still alive. He's 83 years old today. Did you know David Hilliard personally before this case?
Yeah, I knew David Hilliard, bro. You know, knew his son. You know, little David. You know, man, yeah. You know, West Oakland. Oakland itself is not a large city. You know what I'm saying? You know, when I left the street, I think we were 360-something people or something like that. But they had a thing. I know you're familiar with the Macy-Dixon line. West Oakland was the only area of Oakland, you know, in the 40s and 50s that blacks could be. You know, past Lake Merritt was Europeans, you know, was white folks. So all of us, our families, our people that came from Arkansas, you know, Louisiana, these different places, ended up right there in West Oakland, migrated right there to West Oakland. So our families, everybody knew each other. You know, West Oakland is a small spot, you know. So, yeah, I knew David, man. You know, seen him around, you know.
Now, you mentioned Lake Merritt. The few times that I've been up to Oakland, I've visited Lake Merritt. I've jogged around Lake Merritt. And over the years, that community around Lake Merritt has become like a very expensive community now. It's like no one can afford to live there. Can you give us a little bit of background of what that community was like when you was a kid?
When I was a kid, man, Lake Merritt, they used to have band sessions and stuff like that at Lake Merritt, man. The first time I saw GQ or heard GQ, it was at the group GQ was at Lake Merritt on a Sunday, you know. But growing up, man, West Oakland was that's where all the speakeasies was, the pool halls, you know, women walking the street, you know.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You know, soul food cafes, man. You know, that's how West Oakland was. You know, pool halls and things like that. East Oakland. By the time I was, I say, 12 or 13, I started venturing out to East Oakland. Oakland was always a city of rebels, man, you know, conscious people, man, people ready to stand up for a cause. So you saw a lot of that. You know, you was around a lot of that, you know. You make your choices, you know, and some of us made the wrong choices, you know, made bad choices trying to survive, you know, the situation we was in. But yeah, West Oakland was and it still is, you know, a nice place, man. It's just our young people they doing their own thing right now, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I want to pivot to talking about the hunger strike that was going on in the SHU, and we'll start with TC. I believe it was 2013 or 2012. TC, can you give us what you remember of the hunger strike?
Oh man, the hunger strikes, man. Yeah, I was in Corcoran SHU for the second one. I did all 3 hunger strikes. and you know, and you know, we heard about all the brothers that was doing it, man, up there in Pelican Bay, and you know what I'm saying, the reason why, and you know, we was just like, look, man, you know, it was a whole, you know, group of youngsters, you know what I'm saying, back there. At the time I was back there, it was like, man, look, bro, we doing this shit, you know what I mean? And so, and you know, we just stopped taking the trades, man, and you know, at first it was like kind of like, you know, I'm still cool because I got, you know, I got a, you know, canteen in my cell and shit, but you know, as we as the days, you know, kept going, I think Kambouie know about this too, man. We go out there to that hard yard or the shoe yard or whatever the case, and you know, you leave and come back out. The police done went in there and took all your damn food, and then they done put these goddamn you remember those fire hydrants, those fire the fire department water hose, and they fill them up with sand and tape them off, and they can put them in front of 3-4 doors at a time to keep you from fishing, to keep fishing food in. And so it's like, now you in there, and now it's serious. It's like, okay, I really ain't got no food now. You know what I mean? Now I'm in this all the way. I can't take the tray because I'm already committed, and I can't take the sack lunch because I'm already committed. And that's when shit got real. You know what I'm saying? And you know, your body start playing tricks on you. Your mind start playing tricks on you. And you know, you really gotta start, you know, picking and choosing your time for your movement and all of those shit, because you don't want to burn too much energy. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, that the hunger strikes was a serious situation, man. You know, a lot of people was, you know, some people died in those hunger strikes, man, and it got to the point to where they was forcing some dudes to, you know, to take you know, liquid IVs and shit, man, to get back hydrated and put some nourishment in their system and stuff. But hey, man, we prevailed in that. You know what I'm saying? We prevailed in that, you know, time and time again. Every time they threw an obstacle at us, you know what I'm saying? We just kept going strong with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's like, look, if I got to lose my damn life back here, you know what I'm saying? You know, to make the conditions better for the next individual, the next youngster that come up in here, then hey, that's what I got to do. You know what I'm saying? It was like we all in this together, and we was all working in unison and tandem together, man. And you know, I learned a lot from those things. I learned about a lot of unity and togetherness. You know what I'm saying? And strength. You know what I'm saying? That's what I took away from those hunger strikes, because I did all three of them.
I heard about the hunger strikes in 2013, and I noticed people from all different races were signing it. There was BGF. I saw this paper, BGF, Mexican Mafia. Everyone was on, like, in unity. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was one of the most beautiful things, man, inspiring moments of my life, man. And it was one of the things that George Jackson always said, how strong we are if we come together and set our differences to the side. That one right there, man, it was so inspiring because, you know, cats finally realized, man, we all in this together.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
We had made that determination, man, that, you know, it's better to do something than not to do nothing. If we don't do something, we're going to die back here anyway. We might as well die fighting to get out, you know? And so the first one, you know, I'm a diabetic. So the first one, I lasted 3 days, man, and went out, you know? I woke up in the emergency room with IV in my arm, man. They was pumping sugar in me. Instant sugar, man, trying to save my life, you know. So I was there. I was one of the ones they was feeding intravenously on the secret because I was still refusing to eat while I was in the hospital. And so that right there, it woke me up to the fact of where, you know, if you don't stand for something, you know, you know, you ain't nothing. You know, you have to stand for something, man. You know, but each one of them hunger strikes, it got stronger and stronger, and as it got stronger, the relationships, like Cece was saying, you seen the unity, man. You know, it was pure. You know, men coming together, fighting for a cause, man, from different ethnicities, you know, different walks of life. But none of us back there the same, you know. I had relationships with Emmy, you know, with ABs, man, you know, and these were people, you know, decades prior to this, or years prior to that, would consider themselves our enemies, you know. But we came together, man, and made that happen. You know, that in humanity we all were suffering back there, we made a difference, man. We made a change, you know. So that's why I say that's one of the most beautiful things, man, and inspirations in my life, you know.
Yeah, there was a lot of, at least the 2013 hunger strike is the one that got a lot of media attention. I went to a couple of protests here in LA, and it really made a huge impact on bringing awareness to the conditions of the people in the shoe that have that awareness was never publicized that large ever before.
I had comrades, man, back there. You know, I was back there 27. I had comrades back there 50. You know what I'm saying? You know, 40, 50 years, man. You know? So, I mean, man, you know, for a person to remain strong, you know, all those years, man, under that type of deprivation, and, you know, we didn't even go to classification. I still don't understand what classification is, you know, what committee is. Because, hey, CC, tell him, hey, when you go to committee, all they say is snitch, debrief, or die. You know, who want to hear that? That's all they going to tell you. Snitch, debrief, or die. You know what I'm saying? So why should I even go sit in a room full of these people, man, and that's what they telling me. You know, so I never knew. To this day, I don't know how the function of classification. What the hell going on, you know, in the committee. You know? Now today, man, I'm on the main line. Even now today, I'm out here on the main line. I ain't been to committee in since I've been here in 2 years. I don't even go. Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, man, you know, but, you know, like they say, cruel and unusual punishment, man, you know, that was illegal and it's totally inhumane. You know, people died back there, man. You know, I used to hear cats screaming and hollering way down the hall in another block.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, you know, hollering for their mother, man. You know, because that isolation had worn them down where they couldn't take it no more. You know, cats was hanging themselves and all that type of stuff. You know? Yeah. So, I mean, you know, we had to do that. To be living, you know, when the brothers came together and came up with that in all hostilities, that was one of the most gangster moves I ever seen. You know, that was beautiful. You know what I'm saying? To create that, man.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You know, we need that in our communities. You know, that's something we need in our communities, man. And surely on these yards, you know.
Now, TC, I want to ask you, like, how long did it take you to realize that being in a shoe was cruel and unusual? Like, how long did it take before it impacted you? Because I know it hits everybody differently, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, it took I had been to the shoe a couple of times before, and it hadn't hit me. You know what I'm saying? I just figured, you know what I'm saying, this is a place where all the riders go to, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause you're seeing the same people and shit that's permitting all the violent acts on the yard to even get a damn shoe. I don't think it hit me until my last shoe term. My last one was the most extensive. You know what I mean? And I set up that motherfucker for years, man. Thinking that damn, I'm never getting up out of here, and that's when it hit me. That's when I started to see that the conditions was up. You know what I'm saying? I started to notice the deprivations and shit and the games that they play. It was that last shoot term, man, that last extensive stay where I really, you know what I'm saying, I really became conscious of what the hell was going on and the games that was being played and you know how they was trying to break people. You know what I'm saying? How they was trying to not just break you, but break your spirit, your humanity, and all that shit. You know what I mean? And when I seen that, I was just like, oh yeah, this right here, this some serious shit right here. You know what I'm saying? And I've never really allowed the conditions of the shoe to break me. You know what I'm saying? To play with my psyche, my psychological. You know what I'm saying? Well-being. I always remain strong, bro, and stout. You know what I mean? And it's just like what the brother was saying. Those places was designed to break people, to strip people from their humanity and shit. But when you really look at it, you know what I'm saying? Those places, man, those places made us better men. You know what I mean? And we got to be grateful to them too, because I learned so much from being back there. I learned a lot from a lot of different people. You know what I mean? And it taught me how to be. It taught me how to have self-control. It taught me how to have discipline. It taught me how to have a certain way about myself. You know what I mean? To carry myself in a certain manner.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
She taught me how to, really, how to really go after what it is I want. You know what I'm saying? It put like a hunger inside of me. You know what I'm saying? It put so much good in me. You know what I mean? And that's what the brother was saying earlier. You know what I mean? A place that was so fucked up and destitute to break you down and fuck you all up, man. It did the opposite, because a lot of us is out here. A whole bunch of us is out here, man, and we all thriving. We all thriving out here, man, and you know what I mean? And we all trying to help the next generation, you know what I'm saying, to thrive and to not make the same, stupid mistakes that we made to even land in some shit like that in the first place, you know what I'm saying? And to break this whole cycle that's called prison down. You know what I mean? He's still out here doing the work.
I watched an interview on this TV show, Kambouie, of a guy that was in the shoe. It's a Mexican mafia dude named Wedo Sherm. And I never forget, he said, he was talking tough. He said, they ain't built a prison that can break me.
Serving a life sentence for murder, Leon lives in what is widely regarded as the most restrictive environment in the state of California, Pelican Bay's Security Housing Unit, or SHU. Inmates are confined to their cells for all but 90 minutes per day, which they're allowed to spend in a nearby concrete exercise area. Leon had been living here for 14 years when we met him.
I always tell people they ain't built a prison hard enough to break me, And some of us are stronger than others. And I think that's what Pelican Bay is about. Only the strongest are the ones that are going to make it,
And I could tell he was kind of performing for the camera and being braggadocious, but was he talking tough, or are there some people that really, sit in there for 10 years and say, I can take it?
Yeah, you have guys that have that attitude, that mind, but later on down the line, they realize it's a fight, man. Because that place, it tries to castrate you, it tries to break your spirit, it separates you from society in ways where, you start seeing your relatives, you outliving your relatives, your family. And the only time you get to call home is when you lose somebody in your family. You know, so a lot of that takes toll on your mind too, man. Not just your heart, but your mind, you know? And like you say, you saw something that, you know, he was stunned for the camera. You know, only a fool would really think like that. You know, because you have the strongest of men out here now. You know, that CC was just talking about, man, we still suffer from that shit. You know, excuse my language, but we still suffer from that shit. You know, you know, you bring stuff out of that shoe with you, man. Psychological problems. You know, that sensory deprivation plays on you. You know, but yeah, it's, you know, he might feel like that or think like that, but you know, like you say, it's a camera there.
Yeah. Now you mentioned about going to committee. They want you to snitch, debrief, or die, and I want to get into some of the reasons why you're still incarcerated and what's been going on at your parole hearings. I noticed that you've been voluntarily waiving the right to go to a board like 4 different times. And then you recently, in 2023, I believe,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
decided to go to board. Can you tell us what's been going on with you since 2010 when you've been voluntarily waiving your right?
Well, I don't think I was ready myself, you know, prepared to face the board, you know, with what I was bringing to the board. You know, while I was back there in the shoe, I thought another case back there, man, in-house, you know, and another life crime, you know. So going to the board right after that, I knew what they was going to do. They was going to deny me parole, you know.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
So instead of going there unprepared and not ready to hear that,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I was trying to put myself in a position to better myself, you know, to better my chances of getting home, you know. And then there was other write-ups, phone write-ups, you know, stuff like that, you know. So I put it off again, you know. But those were the only reasons there, man.
In 2023, I guess you decided to go to the board and you got denied 5 years. Can you take us through that process? What made you feel like you was ready, and what was that like when they denied you?
Well, 10 years had went by, man, since that last life crime, you know. And I had taken advantage of any self-help programs that was there in Folsom where I was. I had racked up, you know, a nice amount of certificates, you know, and was sort of disciplinary free for a while. My age, you know, I fell under the elder bill and under the youth bill, you know. So I had things like that going for me. So I went ahead and went, you know. I had a little briefcase, you know.
And when they denied you for 5 years, what was that like?
Being denied 5 years, it was disappointing. It was very disappointing, man, because all the things I've done, the transformation, you know, I've made, man, I'm a whole new person, you know. And since being out of the shoe, I've proven that, you know. I've proven that not to anybody else, but to myself. I know I'm a much better.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. And your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And if given the chance, you know, I could come out of here and help our communities, man. You know, I can do much better good than harm, you know. So I went ahead and went, man, and like I said, it was disappointing. You know, it was disappointing, but at the same time, it was expected too. You know, I had hope, you know, but at the same time, I was prepared for the denial.
Okay, and I'm familiar with someone that you probably know well named Fatih, and he was actually he was approved. He was deemed suitable a couple years ago. I'm gonna say couple years ago. I can't remember what year that was. When you see someone like Fatih come home, does that give you some sort of, you know, you more optimistic about your possibility?
Absolutely.
Now.
Yeah, and he's doing good, man. You know? And
yeah.
He's doing good. You know? Yeah.
Okay, so TC, self-help programs, certificates. Now that you're in Solano, both of you guys are in Solano, can you speak about how important doing those programs are to being found suitable at some point in the future?
Oh man, self-help is very, very important, man, because you get into those self-help groups, and you know, if you're a person that's just, you know, you chrono chasing at first, but once you sit in and you start reading the material, you know what I'm saying, and you really start to ask yourself some serious questions about who you was in the past and what you was doing, and you know where you at in your transformation now. You know what I mean? And so I've taken a lot of self-help groups, you know, and you know, you gain insight from those things about you. You know what I mean? And that's really that's what the board want to see. They want to see if you have, you know, insight. You know what I'm saying? Insight ain't really nothing but, you know, having a conversation about, you know, about yourself. You know, about, you know, what you was dealing with in the past and what you're dealing with now. I mean, that's all insight is being able to have a conversation about, you know, whatever your situation is, and that's one of the things they're looking for. Another thing they're looking for, you know, the board is looking for is they want to know if you're not going to be a hazard to society, if you're not going to go out there and reoffend and commit crimes and come back to prison. You know what I mean? Because they sign off on you. They sign off on you to put you back out there in the society, so they want to know, hey man, is you gonna go out there and reoffend, Mr. Dawson? You know what I mean? But the self-help groups, you know, they help you really find yourself. They really help you dig deep and find the answer. You know what I'm saying, to the question. You know what I'm saying, to the problem. And that's just my take on self-help groups, man. And they insightful as hell, man. Like, I'm taking pretty much every self-help that they have in prison, bro. You know, even in AAA, anger management, denial management, you know, victims awareness, CGA, you know, victims impact, relapse prevention, community healing through amends, RAC with Willie Woods and all that stuff. Man, I took all of them, bro. All of them, and they very, very important, man. If you go into the boardroom and you ain't got no self-help, they gonna tell you you ain't got no insight. They gonna tell you playing. They gonna tell you to come back in probably 3 to 5 years. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's all about, you know what I'm saying, doing the work on yourself. so you can go in there and have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? And you know, take some responsibility and some accountability. That's what the groups teach you. They teach you how to be responsible. They teach you how to be accountable for your shit. You know what I mean? It's a whole lot that come with that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And those groups, man, self-help is is very, very important. Real important for anybody that's going to the board. You know what I'm saying? And is planning on, you know, trying to get a suitability, get found suitable in their initial. You know what I mean? Because that's the goal, to get found suitable in your initial board hearing. And so if you planning on doing that, you got to take self-help. You got to do everything you can to give yourself an opportunity, man. Give yourself a chance.
Now, Kambouie, what was the change for you to start pursuing these programs, the self-help, earning certificates? What was the? Can you recall when you said, "Yeah, I got to start working on myself to get out of this place"?
Well, like I say, I wasn't, and I'm still not confident in the board, you know, letting me go. But as far as the self-help, man, all that stuff that I do now, in all honesty, I do it to better myself. I do it for me, you know, and at the same time, hopefully, I shine that reflection before the board that I've done this stuff. Because, like I say, I started at 9 years old.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Ripping and running the street, man, hustling, you know. Dropped out of high school in the 9th grade, you know. I was out there living life in the street, but you know, in the fast lane. So to show the things that I'm showing now, you know, to the board, it's really for me, man. I feel good about who I am. You know, and I hope that it helps me at the parole board. But it's really anybody, even if you're not doing a life sentence and you don't go before the parole board, if you want to leave out of here a better person than you came in, the self-help programs is for you. You know, it helps you with your thinking. You know, it opens you up to who you were, the mistakes you were making, and it can give you a different outlook on life, man. It can help you. You know, so all that I do now, I'm doing for me and the people. You know, so that I can have the tools to help the next brother or sister. You know, help them shine a light, man. You know.
We're gonna wrap this episode up right here, and I hope to see you in 2028 face to face, brother.
Absolutely. All right, man. I appreciate you.